Hi everyone. I wanted to do a quick video on a conversation we had earlier this week at our Community and Public Services Committee around the public consumption of cannabis. And during that meeting, there were a couple of options presented, and in the end, there was a recommendation made to make draft amendments. And what I wanted to do is review those two options that were discussed at the meeting and share a little bit of my thought on this, because I wasn't a voting member of that committee, although I had a chance to sit in on the discussion and share some thoughts. And then I wanted to really ask for your feedback, because this isn't coming back until July, so it gives us an opportunity to get your feedback and use that to inform any changes that we might make from the initial recommendation, if any. And so, as mentioned, we had two options that were being discussed, and what I will do is I'll put those up on the screen here for you, starting with option number 1, which focuses on more of almost a full prohibition of public consumption of cannabis, with the exception of very specific areas. So as you're seeing on the screen right now, where you would be allowed to smoke or vape cannabis would be in pocket parks, in walking trails outside of the river valley, grassed utility lines, and other types of parkland with no amenities for children. In any other area temporarily approved by our city manager, and at festivals only in approved cannabis gardens that are enclosed, shielded, separated from other festival goers, and do not allow persons under the age of 18 to access those areas. And where you wouldn't be able to smoke or vape with cannabis would be in any building, patio, public vehicle, or substantially enclosed area, on any school or hospital property, on any parkland that contains a playground, sports field, skate or bicycle park, a zoo, a cemetery, a golf course, a ski hill, an outdoor theater, an outdoor pool or spray park, skating rink, off-leash area, and other children's events or amenities. At any family-friendly city attractions, which would include Sir Winston Churchill Square, Fort Edmonton Park, and the Edmonton Valley Zoo. This would also mean you wouldn't be able to smoke on any sidewalks, boulevards, alleyways, or roadways. That would also include all private property where the public has expressed or implied invitation to access, and that includes things like a shopping mall parking lot, and also you wouldn't be allowed in the North Saskatchewan River Valley. Now, if you compare that to what's been put into option 2, option 2 focuses a little more on the provincial model with some additional regulations than what were set out. So I'm not going to read through that entire list again, but I want to highlight a few of the key differences that would be between options 1 and 2. And if you look at one of the first ones where you could be able to smoke, it would actually open up the opportunity to smoke cannabis or vape cannabis near those amenities for children. You would still be 30 meters, you'd have to be 30 meters away from one of those locations, but it would still allow you the ability to be within those spaces. The other major change would be the inclusion of sidewalks, boulevards, alleyways, roadways, 10 meters from entranceways, as opposed to the 5 meters we currently use for tobacco, and of course open windows and bus stops. And then the final piece would be that addition of private properties, so something like that shopping mall parking lot. So with those two options in mind, what we were discussing at the committee, and it's important to note that we don't need to choose only option 1 or 2. We have the ability to do a hybrid if we feel that might be better. And my personal take on this is that I feel option 2 is actually a little too loose to start with this. This is a new place for us in the city of Edmonton, and a lot of the feedback we've been hearing over the last number of months as we've been talking about this issue with regards to separation distances from other stores and from spots like schools and playgrounds, the common theme has always been err on the side of caution to start. Let's see how things go. Take a year, analyze it, see what worked, see what didn't, and then make adjustments afterwards. And I think that's the principle I'd like to apply here. And so personally, my initial reaction is that I actually don't necessarily agree with what's been put forward in option 2. I still think it's a little bit too loose. There's An important consideration in all of this is that whatever we end up deciding, we do want to make sure it is enforceable as well. To say that we will do a complete prohibition may be a desirable outcome for some, but we also have to ask, is it something that's going to be easily enforceable? And there's different ways of thinking even about that, because I mean, you think about alcohol consumption right now, and it's essentially prohibited in any public place except your restaurants and spots in dedicated locations. And we don't have an issue widespread across the city of public consumption of alcohol. And so even though that may be seemingly harder to enforce, it does still seem to work right now. So that's one thought that we need to consider going through these options. Personally, where my head was at yesterday, or when we had the discussion earlier this week, actually, was looking at a minimum, expanding the distance from spots like playgrounds and sports fields, near any of those amenities for children. I think at a minimum, we'd want to see a 50 or 100 meter distance. One idea I suggested, and I'd like to discuss a little further when this comes back in July, is maybe actually looking at some of these locations, particularly the larger parks where there might be a playground in one corner, but for the rest of the park there's nothing at all. Maybe you actually create a designated smoking area and vaping area to keep that concentrated in one spot or in a couple of spots spread throughout. So that's just one way of how you might look at a hybrid option between these two. I think we need to talk a little bit more about those sidewalk conversation as well. One suggestion that was presented by one of the speakers that came forward at the meeting was maybe consider use on your standard sidewalk going throughout your neighborhoods, but high volume traffic areas where there's particularly maybe a lot of commercial traffic, so on a spot like White Ave or Jasper Ave, maybe you don't allow it there. An interesting idea. I still don't know what I think of that, but it might be one way to help work us through this transition. So that's really why I want to do this video. Is I want to hear from you. I want to get your feedback on this. What do you think about the public consumption of cannabis? Again, what's important to note is we're not debating whether or not it should have been legalized in the first place or any of those conversations. Specifically, what we're talking about is where the public should be able to use cannabis. So I'd love your feedback. Feel free to put it in the comments section below. Again, what do you like? Do you like option 1? Do you like option 2? Would you prefer hybrid and something in the middle? And in which case, what are some of the specific things you'd like to see put in that hybrid? So please take some time to share that in the comments section. And I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, because we'll do more of these videos to try and get your feedback on city issues. And thanks again for taking the time to watch this, and have a great day, everyone.